joining us tonight on another episode of The Racing Report. It is our first episode of 2026, and I am so glad all of you have decided to tune in for another fabulous little half hour where we are going to talk all things motorsports. My name is Rob Peeters, and I'm your host for this little show that we've been doing now for about the last year, maybe year and a half here, and I'm so glad we are able to kick off 2026 with a brand new show, brand new season. It's not a nice round number on what episode number it is. This is our 57th episode, for those of you keeping count at home, which, let's be honest, I don't think any of you are. But despite that, we do have a lot of motorsports news and notes coming at you here. We've got some Formula One news to talk about, some IndyCar news, and we've got some great big fantastical news in the world of NASCAR that also, unfortunately, is countered with some very tragic news as well, because, again, we have not had an episode for about the last month. But as we go ahead and get started, be sure, if you like this show, to go ahead and give me a follow on social media. You could do so by looking up at rpeeters33. That's RPEETERS 33. And then if you like this show, make sure to download that WTHR Plus app on your smart device so that you can watch brand new episodes of The Racing Report each and every week of the racing season. We're going to be back into this, a new episode each and every week, and I'm so excited for all of you to see what's in store coming up here in 2026. But let's go ahead and jump right on into the news and notes of Formula One. We'll start off with the news that Jack Doohan has officially left Alpine after he was demoted following just 5 races of the Formula One season in 2025. Now, rumors suggest that he might be heading for a Super Formula drive with Kondo Racing, though as of right now, that is just a rumor, and it has not yet been confirmed. Meanwhile, Zhou Guanyu has been now announced as the new Cadillac F1 team reserve driver for 2026. Now, he had left the Ferrari Academy after serving as their reserve driver last year. Remember, he was driving for Alfa Romeo and Sauber for last couple of seasons, but was released at the end of 2024 when they decided to go with a new lineup of Nico Hülkenberg and Gabriel Bortoleto, who, by the way, they're still there, but he is going to be their reserve driver for the Cadillac F1 team this season, and that's important to note because if something were to happen to Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas, the drivers of Cadillac F1 team, he would be the number one driver that would step in relief of those drivers, as Colton Herta does not yet have enough points on his super license to be able to race a Formula One event, so that job would go to Zhou Guanyu, excuse me. Still getting used to that. I should be better by now, but he's been out of F1 for the last season, so I'm not going to beat myself up too much about that. But anyway, moving on into more Formula One news. Now, with the addition of the Cadillac F1 team joining the grid as the 11th team, the FIA has modified Formula One qualifying procedures, with positions 7 through 22 being knocked out now at the end of Q3, and that means that positions 11 through 16 will be knocked out at the end of Q2, and positions 1 through 10 will again continue to race for the pole in Q3. Now, if you've played any Formula One game in the past couple of years, when they add a 21st and 22nd cars to the grid, obviously with your, if you're playing as the character, that's your grid or whatever. Usually that's how the qualifying procedures are, but instead of having to rely on a video game for how we think it's going to be, the FIA has now just confirmed this is how the qualifying procedures are going to be in 2026. So not really much of a big difference, really, honestly, going back to the way things were in 2015 when we still had Manor on the grid before they dropped out and before Haas got there. Now, here's an update to a story we brought you prior to our holiday break. Now, former Formula One driver Adrian Sutil is now in pretrial custody, facing alleged charges of fraud. Now, here's their update today that we have to bring you. His lawyer now says that Sutil is a victim of an extortion plot, with him and his family all targeted in a blackmail scheme. Now, here's the big thing about this is Sutil's legal representatives say 9 luxury cars valued at approximately 17 million euros were taken from his private garage in Monaco. Now, we don't have really a lot more information on this, but this is what Sutil's lawyers are now saying, that this fraud scheme involving the Formula F1 driver could be escalating just a bit. And again, if we get any more updates on this, we'll be sure to bring it to you right here on the Racing Report. So it's another reason why you really shouldn't miss a single episode of this show, because we'll always have the most up-to-date news and notes as soon as we get it. But that is it for Formula One news today on today's show. Now let's go ahead and talk about some of the IndyCar news that's been going on here in the world since the off-season. Again, if IndyCar's off-season is very long, we still have a little over a month now until we get back on track in March, or late February, early March, I should say. But before that, we know when Mick Schumacher's first oval test will happen. Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan says that he will take to the Homestead Miami Speedway on February 4th for his first ever oval test. Now, that comes just days, less than a week really, before the all-teams test at Sebring, which is scheduled for February 9th and 10th. So IndyCar getting ready for the first testing. Now, we've already had a couple of other tests. Will Power has taken his first laps around in an Andretti machine. We saw that a couple of weeks ago. So there's that to note. But a lot of drivers getting settled in here on their new rides in the world of IndyCar, and it'll be really exciting to see what happens come St. Petersburg. Now, more news. This is a big deal. Dennis Reinbold says him and his partners at Dreyer Reinbold Racing are working to expand their IndyCar program beyond the Indianapolis 500 for the first time since 2012. So remember, Dreyer Reinbold Racing had been racing in IndyCar essentially since almost around the IRL's formation, but after the 2012 season went down to a part-time effort and eventually has gone to just become an Indy 500 only team. But Dennis Reinbold says he's looking to change that. So he says if these efforts, in order to expand the team, come to fruition, the idea is that they could be a part-time entry in 2026 and possibly 2027, aiming to become a full-time entry again in time for the rollout of the new IndyCar chassis scheduled for 2028. So very interesting news there. We'll keep an eye on it in future episodes of the Racing Report if anything develops from that. Meanwhile, Catherine Legg says she is also working on a deal to race in the Indianapolis 500 in 2026, as well as participation in both the NASCAR Cup Series and IndyCar races coming up in March at the Phoenix Raceway. Now, that would be a huge deal. She wants to do double duty in Phoenix with both IndyCar and NASCAR, which would make sense given she made her NASCAR Cup Series debut at that track just last year, driving for Live Fast Motorsports. So anything could happen, but definitely Catherine is working very hard behind the scenes to get a program together to at least run the Indy 500 and then possibly even run a doubleheader of NASCAR and IndyCar, which again, that's going to be a doubleheader in general with the NASCAR Cup Series and the IndyCar Series racing at the same weekend at Phoenix Raceway coming up here in March. The Xfinity Series, or now O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, will also be there, but that is a very big deal that a lot of fans, including myself, are looking forward to. Now, in the final piece of news here for the IndyCar series, we'll talk about this big news. Now, we've been talking about what's going on with Prema Racing. We know that they've been needing to find a big cash influx in order to continue racing for 2026, but now we received big-time news here on Wednesday that Prema Racing co-founder Angelo Rawson, his son Rene, and his partner, Rene Rosen's partner, I'm not even going to try and butcher that name, have left the Italian firm as of Monday. Now, the team has yet to find a buyer or secure the necessary funding that it needs in order to participate in the IndyCar Series in 2026, and it is also approaching a fast-moving deadline of about January 31st for when their supplier contract with Chevrolet needs to be finalized. So a lot of moving parts there. Again, we don't really know what's going on, but it's a race against the clock now for Prema in order to get ready for the 2026 IndyCar season, and hopefully an attempt to defend their title as the pole winners of the Indianapolis 500. That is it for IndyCar and open wheel news so far on this portion of the show. But we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to detail some of the Supercars news that broke since we last talked. And we're going to update you on the big big developments happening in the world of NASCAR. So all that's coming up right after this break, so don't go anywhere. You are watching The Racing Report. And welcome back to The Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters. Thanks so much for sticking with us through that break. I really appreciate it. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the news and notes in the world of supercars, because our last episode of 2025 detailed the Supercars Championship, which was decided in quite a bit of controversy. And as we'll learn coming up here in a little bit, NASCAR seems to have backtracked on the exact same championship format that Supercars has implemented as of last year. But none of that today so far. Just some silly season news going on in the world of supercars to report to you today. First of all, Richie Stanaway has joined Blanchard Racing Team as a co-driver following his sudden firing from Prema Air Racing with just 2 rounds remaining in the 2025 season. So good to see him land somewhere, especially on such short notice. I mean, it's never good to be fired from your ride, but it's even worse to suddenly be released with 2 races left when there's almost no rides available. So thankfully he was able to land one. Even if it is just as a co-driver, he'll still be on the Supercars grid next year in some capacity. So good news for him. Meanwhile, as Kai Allen is getting a contract extension with Grove Racing. Now remember, Kai Allen made the finals, the final 4, I should say, in the Supercars Championship last season. And now Grove Racing is rewarding him for that effort with a new contract that will keep him employed with the squad until at least the 2030 season. So good news there if you're a Kai Allen fan. Definitely good news for that. Now let's go ahead and talk about some of the NASCAR news, because we have some great, fun, fantastic NASCAR news that I'm sure a lot of people are very excited to see, myself included. But also we do have to talk about some tragedy that befell this entire community over the offseason. But before we do that, let's go ahead and talk about the happy news first, because I think we need some happy news just in general in our lives. Now, if you were a fan of the NASCAR playoffs and you liked the elimination style racing and the win and you're in, this might not be for you. You might sit here and think, well, boy, this guy sure is biased. You could say that, but again, at the same time, the majority of fans, people on the inside, drivers, there's been a lot of pushback toward that specific system. And so we learned suddenly on Monday, January 12th, in a press conference by NASCAR, that they are doing away with the elimination style format in favor of going back to its roots, a 10-race chase for the NASCAR Cup. Now, what's even more important to note about this is that the word playoffs are gone. We're not using the word playoffs anymore. We're going back to using the phrase the chase. We're not calling them playoffs anymore. They're not playoffs. This is the chase. It is a 10-race chase to the NASCAR Cup. And but there are going to be a few differences in this new version of the chase compared to the original version of the chase that existed from 2004 until 2013, of course, with its modifications with wild cards that came in later on in its lifespan, I should say. One of the most important things to note is that instead of going back to just 10 drivers, they're keeping it at 16. So the top 16 drivers at the end of the first 26 races are going to be locked in to the chase. But what's important to note there is that the points are going to be reset, but they're going to be seeded in a much more fair, I guess, way compared to how the drivers finished their regular season. So if you're the regular season champion, you're going to enter the chase with 2,100 points, which is a big deal because the 16th seeded driver is going to enter with just 2,000. Now, it's going to go downward from 25 points back for the second place driver and then 35 points back for the third place driver, but then it's going to be go down in 5-point increments from 4th all the way down to 16th, where it finally gets to that 2,000 mark. So a lot different than what we've been seeing. So should be a little bit more fair seeding. The driver who is the best in the regular season will get a boost in the chase and will be seeded higher, will have those extra points. And also what's important is they're going to keep the emphasis on winning. The emphasis on winning is still going to be there because instead of earning 40 points for a race win, you're now getting 55, which is a huge upgrade. And that's also going to, again, incentivize drivers to not sandbag and not points race and continue to race hard and race for victory. So I think this is a great middle ground that NASCAR has established here within its fan base and within its point systems. I think a lot of drivers, fans, media, a lot of people are very receptive to this. Now, in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, it's going to be basically the same exact thing. They're going to have a chase as well, which is important to note because they've never had a chase before. They've only ever had the playoff format, which was introduced in 2016 in both the then Xfinity Series and the Truck Series. But the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series will have 12 drivers compete in a 9-race chase, while the Truck Series will see 10 drivers compete over a 7-race chase. So very simple-ish to understand. Not as complicated as the playoffs have been. And again, hopefully we will see champions be determined based on merit rather than luck. Much like we saw what happened last year with the Xfinity Series Championship and what we've seen over the course of several years with the Cup Series Championship as well. So that's some big news there. But unfortunately now we do have to go into the sad and tragic news of the show. And since we last filmed a Racing Report episode, we learned that unfortunately Greg Biffle, the NASCAR Truck Series and Busch Series champion, as well as a multi-time race winner in the Cup Series, runner-up in 2005, arguably named to one of NASCAR's 75 greatest drivers list just a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, his wife Christina, daughter Emma, son Ryder, as well as Craig Wadsworth, Dennis, and Jack Dutton were all killed in a plane crash on December 18th in North Carolina. And this was a very tragic event that has brought together the NASCAR family. And it was very hard to hear, as well as everybody, myself included, when that news broke. My heart goes out to the Biffle family and everybody who knew Greg. As I grew up watching Greg Biffle, and I even have a funny little story about Greg Biffle that unfortunately I don't have a lot of time to tell today, and I'd love to at some point, but you can listen to my podcast, the Racing with Rob and Roller podcast. You could get that wherever you get your podcasts. We just put out a New Year's special where we discuss that and I tell my story. Highly recommend checking that out if you have the time or even want to, because Greg Biffle was a wonderful human, not just behind the race car, but behind the wheel of a race car, but also in terms of his humanitarian efforts and everything that he did for the residents of North Carolina in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. And our thoughts and prayers, again, continue to go out to the Biffle family. And NASCAR has also announced that it will have a gathering in remembrance on Friday, January 16th at 11 a.m., and it will be streamed on the NASCAR channel as well as NASCAR's social media platforms. And also, before we move on into some more of the news and notes, I want to extend my heartfelt condolences to Denny Hamlin, as his father unfortunately lost his life in a house fire a couple of weeks ago. His mother was critically injured as well, and that comes as his father was indeed terminally ill, but unfortunately his life was cut short, not due to his illness, but instead due to a fire. And again, just some tragic events unfolding in the NASCAR world, and my thoughts and prayers again go out to everybody infected, including the Biffle family and the Hamlin family. But again, we do need to talk about some of the other news and notes that are going on in the world of NASCAR, as we are on a bit of a time crunch as we're trying to get in this new little format here. But we will move on here. And again, not really so much tragedy, but definitely a disappointing thing to learn. Brad Keselowski announced that he has broken his leg in a skiing accident in December, and he will have to sit out the Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium, but he does envision being back in time for the Daytona 500. Now, Corey LaJoie will race the number 6 Ford for Brad Keselowski at the Clash, but again, like Keselowski said, he expects to be good to go and all healed up in time for the Daytona 500 coming up here in about a month's time. Speaking of the Daytona 500, Jimmy Johnson will once again compete in the Daytona 500 driving the number 84 Carvana Toyota, but Legacy Motor Club has applied for the open exemption provisional and has been granted that, which means Jimmy Johnson will be guaranteed a starting spot in the Daytona 500 coming up here again in about a month's time. So some big news there as we get ready for Daytona coming up here in a little bit. Now, also, we previously reported that Nick Sanchez was suddenly released from Big Machine Racing, and just before Christmas, Big Machine Racing announced that the replacement driver for Nick Sanchez, and that's going to be Patrick Staropoli, who's going to be driving the number 48 Chevrolet for that team in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series full-time next season. Meanwhile, some big news in the Truck Series. Tony Stewart is coming back after almost a year of almost a decade of not racing in NASCAR. He will race for Colleague Racing in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race at Daytona. He'll be driving the number 25 Ram truck as part of their free agent driver program, and Stewart is the first driver announced for that program. Now, again, they do say they're going to try and announce that driver the week before each race, but they've already made the announcement here for Stewart, so that's huge. Tony Stewart coming back in racing in a NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series truck. I don't believe Stewart's raced in a truck in maybe 2 decades. It's been a long time since Stewart was behind the wheel of a truck, so definitely some very cool news there if you're a fan of the old Rushville Rocket. Also, going into the Truck Series will be Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He will race the Truck Series at Daytona, driving the number 45 for Nice Motorsport, and he will again drive the truck again the next week at Atlanta, and then I don't know what's going to happen with that truck afterwards. I probably should have looked that up. Maybe it hasn't been announced. Either way, that's big news there for Ricky Stenhouse fans. And finally, we learned that Jake Garcia will pilot the number 98 truck for ThorSport Racing in the full-time in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series coming up in 2026. Because remember, Ty Majeski is going to take over the number 88 truck for the retiring Matt Crafton. So that is it for this week's news and notes in NASCAR, or I should say the last month's news and notes in NASCAR. But don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we're going to recap some of the races that did happen over the course of the last month. And then we're going to get you set up and ready for all the races that are coming up later on this month. So don't go anywhere. You are watching The Racing Report. And welcome back to The Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters. Thanks so much for sticking with us through that break. I really appreciate it. Boy, let me tell you something. We've got a lot going on in the world of racing still, even though it's the off-season and it's January. Formula E held its second race of its 2025 to 2026 season this past weekend, actually, at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez down there in Mexico City. And Nick Cassidy was the victor there, giving Citroën Racing its first ever Formula E victory in just its second start as a manufacturer. That is huge for Nick Cassidy. It was a fun, fantastic race as well, and you know, if you couldn't catch it live, I believe they aired it after one of the NFL playoff games on CBS. So maybe you were able to catch it there, or maybe you switched over to the other NFL playoff game. Either way, I don't blame you. But it was still a good race. It was still a fun race. Always that modified circuit down there at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez always is really cool for the Formula E drivers to race. But that's not all. They're going to come back here in a couple of weeks, actually, and that leads us into now our final segment of the show. We're going to get you caught up and ready for all the races that are coming up this weekend and over the course of the next weekends throughout January until we get to February when we start talking about the NASCAR Clash at Bowman Gray. But first and foremost, it's important to note that the Chili Bowl is going on this week at the Tulsa Expo Center. The preliminary races, the heat races, everything's going on this weekend in anticipation for the A-Main, which is scheduled for this Saturday, January 17th. Now, that's the Chili Bowl. It's the biggest midget race of the year, arguably. It's the race everybody wants to win. It's going on right now, and now I will say it is on Flow. It is on Flow Racing, so I had to shell out the $40 in order to just watch this week. Usually I shell out the $150 yearly, but finances weren't really allowed for that this week, so I had to settle on the monthly charge of $40, and I got to tell you, I'm not too thrilled about it, but it is what it is. We'll see what that. I think it's worth it. It's going to be very worth it because I've already gotten my money's worth of it watching the last couple of days of the Chili Bowl prelims. And again, I'm going to be watching it all throughout this week into this weekend before we find out who is going to be the 2026 Chili Bowl Nationals champion. And I'm excited to see that. Lots of NASCAR, IndyCar drivers competing in that. Actually, Sheldon Creed won Tuesday night one of the preliminary races, which was pretty awesome. You know, you usually wonder, when's Sheldon Creed going to get a victory? Well, he did so in a midget car, so good for him. But that's not all. Coming up this weekend as well is going to be the Roar for the 24, which is IMSA's 3-day test prior to the Rolex 24 at Daytona, which is actually coming up January 24th and 25th. So in a couple of weeks' time, we'll be able to watch one of the greatest endurance races in North America in the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Again, lots of NASCAR and IndyCar drivers expected to go out there and race for a win or a class win, and I'm looking forward to it. So we'll get you started this weekend with the Roar before the 24 before the race kicks off coming up here in a couple of weeks' time. And then finally, I teased that Formula E was coming back real quickly, and sure enough, it is. They're going to host their third round of the championship coming up on January 31st. They're going to be in Miami over on this side of the world, but it's not going to be at Homestead. It's not going to be at any other permanent track. It's actually going to be, well, it is going to be technically at a permanent track. It's going to be at the Miami International Autodrome, the same exact track where Formula One hosts the Miami Grand Prix. So the Miami E-Prix coming up here on January 31st. But that is it for this week's episode of the Racing Report. Again, we really appreciate everybody who tuned in. Thank you so much for all your support. Make sure if you like this show to follow me on social media. Do so at rpeters33. And then as always, make sure you've got that handy dandy little WTHR Plus app installed on your smart TV so you don't miss a single episode of the Racing Report each and every week. So for WTHR Plus, my name is Rob Peeters, and this has been the Racing Report.